And hello from Drumhead. Here we are on this lovely, possibly sunny, but I don't know because I'm stuck inside a very dark room, Tuesday evening. It's myself and Rich Wilson here from Drumhead, delivering what is our second live stream. We tried it last week, possibly worked okay. So we're forging it ahead today. We just want to give you guys some hints and some tips as to what you can be doing practice-wise, while hopefully a lot of you have got a bit of extra time on your hands, and hopefully you're all staying safe and healthy. So tonight we're going to be doing about half an hour, and we're going to be talking about double strokes, how to use them in practice, how to use them in rhythms and as fills. And I will now, as usual, pass you over to Rich to introduce us to the subject. So over to you, Rich.
Hi, guys. Firstly, thanks for checking out what we're doing. Secondly, if you've got any comments at all, stick them in there. Any questions, anything like that, we can get to them. We'll get to as many as we can. And this is something that was brought up to us last week's lesson in applying double strokes to a groove and really using it more on the kit, because we know that the majority of time double strokes are used as a pad exercise to kind of just do that, but there's much more to them. So let's delve into that a little bit. The first starting point is from this absolutely fantastic book, Stick Control, which is page 11, exercise 1. Okay, so if anybody hasn't got Stick Control, I recommend you trying to pick that up. But page 11, exercise 1 is 8th notes and 16th notes. So single stroke 8th notes, double stroke 16th notes. So that's going to sound like this. Okay, so that's not a particularly difficult thing to do, but we've got to get the control over the double stroke so that everything kind of falls into place in the right time.
Absolutely.
So the one thing to do there is to think about getting that really nailed, so you've got the difference between the 8th notes and the 16th notes. What we don't want is this. Where one hand is stronger than the other. Okay, so that would be the starting point to get these double strokes to work.
And what would you suggest in terms of when you mentioned there, Rich, you're talking about the weaker side, which again is a subject that'll come up more and more, and which is why a lot of drummers, when they're trying to do the singles and the doubles, it does sound that uneven. What would you suggest in terms of sort of strengthening the left side, obviously if you're right-handed, on that exercise?
Okay, so that possibly goes away a little bit from the double stroke itself, but if you take the double stroke and you take a hand away from it, so I'll put that on my leg. It becomes like a shuffle.
Okay.
So now what you can do with it is just to strengthen that left side if it's a little bit weak, is to play this. So it's an open-handed shuffle.
Okay.
But that is, if I play double strokes on the snare and then go into the shuffle, you'll see how that fits together.
Yeah. Okay.
You can really use that open-handed playing to develop that weaker side, because everybody is going to have that weaker side.
Yeah, I mean, and it's always, especially in younger students, people starting out, to me, whenever you try to do fills around the kit, it's why they all sound really scruffy, because you've got this left hand or right hand, weaker side, lagging behind. And the open-handed thing is great. I know it's a well-known tip, but it just works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And that's, again, if you start the doubles with your left side, it'll put that shuffle kind of feel on that side. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
It's a great question, Mike. Actually, you've got to get to the point of the weakness and then work on that rather than just trying to plow through with double strokes.
Yeah, I mean, with double strokes, because they were, I think I said to you, and possibly when I came to see you all those years ago to start, they were my sort of nemesis as a teenager. It's why I gave up on double strokes, because I couldn't do them. So my next question to you, I know we haven't got that much time, would be, what are your tips, the best tips for developing an even double stroke and getting the motion right?
Okay. So the main tip for that, if I just get these pad sticks from here, is to put a space in between the double. Okay. I know that sounds really, really strange, but bear with me on it. Yeah. So if you play the doubles, and instead of doing like 1 E-ander, or in the old school, mum, me, daddy, which is what I was taught years and years and years ago. Yeah. To separate those doubles out, so you end up with two separate lots of two notes. Okay, yeah. So that means then that gap, there's a gap in the middle. Da, 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 da. As you speed that up, that gap stays there, but gets smaller because we're speeding it up. Mm-hmm. So then you get really, really, really even double strokes. You still hear that gap?
Like gradually, as you speed up, it gradually just disappears. So I think the other thing that I think when we were talking about years ago, again, the other way to get them more even is to try and develop more power on the second beat you double. I think you showed me a Billy Ward video years ago with that. So you try and get the second beat and try and get that louder, because then eventually, when you do go into them, you're going to get more even doubles. That was another tip that I picked up on what you showed me actually years ago, which is really good.
Definitely. There comes a point with that one where it becomes difficult to pull out the second note when you're at really speed. Yeah, but to develop it, doing it that way, fine. The way you said, the one you said before, the exercise that I just did there, it does sound as though the gap has disappeared, but it's only because the gap's so small.
Yeah.
If you play, if you've got gap beat 1 and beat 2, and that's at 40 beats a minute, that gap seems huge.
Yeah.
If that's at 240 beats a minute, that gap between the notes seems really small. That's all it is. It's just a perception thing. But if you can hear two lots of notes, then you should be able to get them really nice and even.
Cool. All great tips. And by the way, for you guys out there watching, I hope you're enjoying this. And if you are, you've subscribed already probably, but if you're on Facebook, you might not have done. But, please do go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're going to be doing these regularly now that we're all in this situation. So hopefully we can pass on some really good information. Also, if you've got any questions you want to ask via the, probably best to use the YouTube feed or the Facebook feed. Throw in some questions and we'll try and answer what you can. If we can't answer them in this session, because we're keeping them quite concise this time, we will move on to them on a different session. But anyway, Rich, back over to you.
Yeah. There's one question there, Mike, actually, which has just popped up from Russell, which I just need to get a little bit closer so I can see it. But on the double stroke, does your index finger still hang loose, or does it take more control and slightly curl around the stick? Okay? So it's a great question. Okay, This is something that you will generally only see this index finger thing from a certain line of drum teachers. Okay, so being the Chapins and the Famularos and the Gladstones of the world, those kind of things, you'll see this weird sort of index finger thing hanging off the stick. Yeah.
What? I've just been starting work on this myself, because it's something I've never done before.
Yeah.
And it's quite, that question is really person. Well, for me as well. So, please do tell.
Yeah. What it does is the stick, if you've got the stick with your finger underneath it, the stick can no longer bounce up because the finger is in the way. If you put the fulcrum back to here, the stick's got much more freedom to move. The way to get this to work is if you put your hand out even, and hang it in front of you, and then put your stick in, the index finger's in exactly the same place as it was before. Yeah, so there it is. There's the hanging hand. There's the stick. The index finger's not moved. And that gives you then full freedom to be able to get this full turn of the wrist.
Like a free stroke, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The stick will come back so much freer because it's got nothing getting in the way in this finger. The other thing to think about with that is that when if you've all got a stick now, you can try this. Watch your arm here. If you squeeze your finger, your index finger, and your thumb together, this muscle in your arm pops out.
Yeah.
Which then means that you're playing from a tense point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then as we know from our good friend Mr. Famularo, tension is the enemy of movement.
Absolutely.
So if that's tense because the finger's underneath, then we can't physically play quickly. Mm-hmm. So the key to it is to keep it nice and loose, rocking there. Yeah. So in answer to your question, Russ, we're going to do both things. Okay. So up until a certain point, if I lift this up so you can see, the finger's hanging. There comes a point with doubles when you have to go back to kind of letting them go. So then it curls under a little bit. Yeah. So that finger as a full stroke is off. And then when we get lower, we have to put a little bit of a pinch on the stick by just curling that finger under slightly to get the control that we need.
Yeah.
So then when we open up, finger off, and then back down again, the finger curls underneath. Mm-hmm. Just to look at that. Yeah, okay. So, Russ, it's a great question. But the answer is, again, it appears to be quite vague, but it's actually both.
It's interesting because just literally the other day, I was sitting practicing. I was thinking about that and going back to what Dom had said when he came over last time, pointing out pictures of all the great players like Buddy Rich and Jim Chapin and stuff, and Joe Morello, and they all had that finger thing. And I was practicing, and I was sort of building some real speed up. And I was thinking, oh yeah, but my finger's now curling under when I'm getting the double strokes up to speed. And I was trying to do it with the finger hanging, and I couldn't basically. Yeah. So that's.
Yeah. What I'll do is, guys, later on, I'll have a look later on tonight and find the picture that Mike's talking about, and I'll post it on our Facebook page so you can see. It's a picture of a lot of the great drummers, and when you watch them play, they've all got this index finger hanging off the stick. Yeah, so it's something to look at. Well, yeah, great question, Russ. That's brilliant, mate. So let's get back to the double stroke thing. Yeah, we've got to think about getting that so it's musical. Obviously, if we play that at that tempo in 8th notes and 16th notes, it's not particularly very musical. It's not the most musical thing ever. But if we take that up a little bit in tempo and play that over 2 counts, so making that 16th notes and 32nd notes, and then we also then play it all as double strokes. So we've got, so it's all doubles. So it'll be 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so that'll give you this now. So again, not massively complex, but now you can really start to mess with where you put that and just orchestrate that around the drums. Now, remember when you do this, that obviously the snare or your practice pad is going to give you quite a lot of bounce. You're not going to get that from down here. So going back to Russell's question, you may need a little bit of that finger down here to get some double strokes on the floor tom. Because it's a, you know, I mean, this is only a 14, yeah? Mike's is a 27 or whatever size of drums that Mike uses, some ridiculous massive drums, yeah? So the bigger the drum, the more likely it is that it's going to be a little bit slacker, so you're going to have to work a little bit harder because it's not going to give you the stick back, yeah? But taking that exercise, keep the 16th notes on the snare, move the 32nd notes. And then you can create some nice ideas. If you just worked on moving those double strokes around the drums, you'll find some really, really nice things that you can play. Mm. Just fairly fast, but fairly simple ideas. Add that to the other bit that we put on before it, you've got actually quite a nice fill. Yeah, so it's not that complicated, but it's just being creative with it. Yeah. And then once we've got the doubles, so to speak, the double strokes up to speed and they're starting to sound nice, then we can start to add them into your playing, into grooves and things, by simply adding them in combinations. So let's take 5 and 9, 5 and 9 stroke rolls. Yeah. So if you play a groove and stop on count 4. Then you can put the little 5-stroke after it. Ending on the hi-hat. Yeah, end it on the hi-hat, and it all kind of falls into place. Digga-digga-da. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Digga-digga-da. 2, 3, 4.
I'll use it. I mean, the other thing is that I find I use it more than that, using it, you know, on the hats. So you create the same sort of thing. I find actually in a sort of band context, I use doubles probably 80% more on the hats than I do actually around the kit, but that's just the type of stuff I play. So you're just adding a little bit of extra, I don't know, spice to it. Yeah, basically a bit of extra spice to playing rather than just doing your normal 8th note grooves. You can then add a few doubles in there. But like you say, you've got to get them open so you can hear them. A lot of the time you do hear people kind of, you know, putting them in, but they're just a bit sort of fluffed, so you get that sort of. You know what I mean? To get that openness, but that all comes from, you know, spending time on that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like with your hi-hat lick there, Mike, you can create what we sometimes talk about, this needing space inside of a groove. So if you play the 5-stroke here, but then don't finish it with the hi-hat, finish it with just the foot. It's still a 5-stroke. So right, right, left, left foot. So then when you put that back together with the groove, you get a really, really nice space in it.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so it's got that little bit of sort of room and a little bit of space inside of the groove, which is really, really nice to get. And it just adds to your feel if you can keep that little bit of space in it. There's nothing wrong with, I don't know if you do it, Mike, but splitting it.
I was just about to suggest that. yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing with all these exercises, you can split it anyway, can't you? Just like you said, you can split it between the ride and the hats, or between the tom and the hats, or whatever. It's all about experimenting, or between the kick, doing that as well, bringing that into the fills.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with you. Just on the before we get on to putting a foot in it, let's think about putting like a 9-stroke in there now. So right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now in a blues sort of 12/8 feel, that feels really, really nice doing the same as what we just did with it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, keeping that control, and again, without the sort of release of it, just on the foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. I think, because I was going to jump into that thing with, doing between the hands and the feet, but I think that's probably another topic for another lesson. I think for me, the key with the doubles are just getting them accurate, and that's what I avoided for so long. And with that in mind, we should always bring this little fella in, shouldn't we? Yeah, because I don't carry it properly. Regardless of what sort of tempo you're working at, you need to be to have that sort of that thing that's tracking you, don't you? Because you can quite easily just sit there on your pad all day long playing and thinking you're getting it really accurate. But as we keep saying, the metronome is, that's the watcher. That's what keeps an eye on you and tells you exactly what you're doing.
100%. And again, like we talked about in the last stream, didn't we? About we don't always need to keep changing the we don't always need to keep changing the tempo. We could change the subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we could. That clicks at the moment at 90.
Mm-hmm.
So we could play 8th notes. Sixteenth. 32nd notes. 64th notes. Yeah, you're never going to need to play that. But
Rich, you left out the 128th.
Sorry, mate. Sorry. Yeah, we're not doing those today. We're not doing those today. Yeah? Well, that's the same thing with single strokes. If you go, we've talked about it before. You go, instead of changing the click, change the subdivision. So even at 100,
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, you know, you can change the subdivision to triplets and do doubles and triplets over the same thing, can't you? There are all these, you know, different. Oh, he's got his pad out again. Here he goes.
Playing doubles in a triplet feels not that easy. So if you get the triplet. You can do it. It just takes a little bit of time to think about it because it's not that easy.
Yeah, it's good because I was just about to jump on that and you started doing it. I thought, brilliant. I'll let you go on that. But yeah, I mean, you can. That's the great thing is whatever you're working on, you should always think, okay, well, where can I take it next? And I think that for me, that's a really important thing. I'll find a very basic exercise, and then I'll think, okay, how can I expand on that? And a lot of my students found it really infuriating because we'll just crack something. I'll say, well, what about if you just added this to that, or
it never ends. I mean, you know from working with me for all these years that there's never an end to any of it. You always try and go that little bit further, yeah. And me being me, the end's always kind of a million miles away, including in my own playing. I'm still trying to do ridiculous things that I'm never going to play, just to see if I can. Yeah,
and also, and to see if you can, but also to develop control, so that as I said before, again, that that if you're playing at that level in whatever band, then if you can play, up at that level, then everything down here makes it a bit easier. But I think there's some really good words of wisdom from this session, and we did say we were going to kind of keep it. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to it at the moment.
No. Is there any other final comments or questions or anything?
Actually, I just have my glasses on so I can see what's going on. There's they're coming through from both. That'd be great if my laptop didn't decide to turn off. When are they going to have covered that one? Covered that one. Drum rudiments and drum fills. Rudiments and drum fills. Yeah, I mean we're gonna move on to using different rudiments in drum fills next time. This one was particularly just working on doubles at the moment, I think. But
I mean we can do that. We can do the same principle applies to anything. I mean touching on that very, very briefly, that we'll come back to. The same principle that I did with the double strokes, moving them, comes back to the same principle with any rudiment. So you can go, you could do if you go in. To do that with a paradiddle. Any of those, but we can come back to that on a separate session. So we'll make a note of that one and we'll come back to it, and we'll pick a rudiment and show you what to do with that. A future date. Otherwise, these lessons could end up being kind of, 4 hours long.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just maybe finishing off on one from Andy Donnelly, who says he saw a video of me about just using, not moving your arms, but just your wrists. Now, I think he's referring to the one that I that I first did with the sticks across there. Which, again, that was something that really showed me. And it was when we were talking about just working from the wrists and not from the arm, because a lot of time you do get people starting and their arms are up in there, and it's like, you're using too much. And I was talking about sort of keeping it down, but it was one of my I think lockdown's having a certain effect.
Are your videos on the code site, Mike?
Oh, they're all over the place.
Mike's going ever so slightly insane. I'm getting quite worried about him. He was playing paradiddles with a carrot the other day, so if that's got anything to do with anything, it's.
As it was pointed out, though, they weren't the little chantilly carrots, because they're really tricky for paradiddles. They've got to be the big, the big. Anyway, on that note, I think it's about time that we finish this.
Let me just answer this one question from Russell.
Sorry,
yeah, Russ. He's talking about double strokes, but in a sort of closed, in a crushed roll. Yeah. Now, there's a different way of thinking about that, because in a double stroke, if I take a double stroke roll right down. I'm not really any longer playing a double stroke or thinking about playing a double stroke. What I'm playing is, if that's a free note and that's a crushed note, I'm finding the space somewhere in between that.
Like a buzz, isn't it?
Yeah, to get that buzz. So it is probably a double. If you slowed it down enough, you'd see it. Yeah, and then it's a case of getting the control to be able to play that double and keep it in sort of some form of subdivision.
So when it's low, it's more sort of multiple.
Yeah, it's more of a buzz, more of a buzz than anything else. Yeah, and the fingers will be slightly more under, Russ, when you're playing that buzz, because you need the control. The way to see if you, I mean, we're going to finish in a minute, guys, but the way to see if you want that finger, you know, if you're here really loose and you let the stick sit on the pad, and then move your hand, nothing's going to happen because you've not got hold of it. From here, perfectly acceptable. But from here, if you do this, and then you put a slight pinch on the stick, you get enough purchase on it to just be able to start to move it, which is why we use it. So we use that finger when we get lower. When it gets bigger, the finger's off now. Get lower. There it is, yeah? So you'll find, and again there, everybody's at a different time there. Everybody's at a different sort of level. So, you know, when I need to go to fingers when I'm playing single strokes, to me, that's probably 230 beats a minute. Some people need to move much sooner than that. So everybody's slightly different. So in answer to the question about the finger thing, yeah, everybody's slightly different. You find your point where you think that you need to apply that, because the technique is just a means to an end to make your playing better. It's not technique for having the sake of having technique. It's got to be used, as we've always said, in a musical context. Yeah, so that we're not thinking about it too much. If you turn this into some sort of mathematical equation, your playing becomes a mathematical equation, and then it's got no feel in it. I think we should finish on that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that call came through when I was on there.
Yeah, he did.
Sorry, guys. Before we started this session, Rich was trying to work out how to turn off his text coming through to his laptop. And I didn't realise that a FaceTime call might come through at the same time. So I hope that didn't get in the way. Anyway, I hope that didn't distract from what we were trying to pass over. Some great advice there from Rich. And yeah, stay tuned. Subscribe. You know, go on the Facebook page. But really, yeah, subscribe on YouTube. Ask any questions you want for any future live streams. We've also got guests lined up to come on and have chats. Some very, very special guests that will be in the next few weeks. So keep your eyes open with what we're up to, and we'll see you next time, I guess. Anything else to add, Rich? Or you?
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll just say from all of us, just stay safe, look after yourself.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, given time, we'll be able to get back to normal, and then we can keep doing this. We can keep putting all the other content out that we've got for you. But, you know, just thank you for your support, guys.
Yeah, thanks very much. Stay safe. See you later.
Cheers.